Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you are well. When this video is alive, um, please log in to your usual Collaborate link, and you will be able to at least join other students and chit chat a little bit and get in touch with them. I just wanted to kind of divide some of the videos so you're not like watching like a very lengthy video, but for this video, I would like to continue discussing your arrays, which is the last part of our discussion, specifically for this chapter. So this covers arrays and vectors, and I do have separate videos for that. Please do check it out. I did a couple of participation activities and also some of the challenge activities, right? So please take time on looking for those examples. But for this demonstration, I just want to go ahead and have this done so that you will be able to at least kind of look at those segments for this videos and at least a little bit clarity, right? So for this discussion, I'm going to discuss to you how you can actually use arrays as function arguments, and this individual elements of arrays and an entire array can both be passed as an argument to function. So we all know what an argument is and what are parameters, right? So passing a single array element to a function is no different than passing a regular variable of a data type, right? So we know that when you use an argument, it serves as a data, but this time you're not just using a variable. Instead, you can use arrays as function arguments. The function does not need to know that the value it receives is coming from an array. So I'm showing you an example right now on my screen, and this one is your function call, or yeah, this statement is an example for the function call, and this one is an example for the header, right? Moving forward, at least I have given you some of the examples in here on how you can actually um, pass an element, right, into an array, right? Keep in mind that to define a function that has an array parameter, you have to use an empty flat brace to indicate the array in the prototype and the header. So if you are browsing and if you can see some of the examples online or whatnot on the site, and you see this one, this is an indication that you're actually passing an array prototype in the array prototype and have it part of that prototype and header, right? So to be able to pass an array to a function, you just have to use the array name. And if you can see on my screen, these are just examples of function prototype, a function header by use of that array, and what does it look like when it comes to the call. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of examples as I move forward for this definition, right? Use the array name without any brackets as the argument. If you're passing an enter array, you can also pass the array size as a separate parameter so that the function knows how many elements to process, right? And these are some of the examples. So notice in here that if you have that flat brace, as I've mentioned, this one is to define a function that has an array parameter, right? So this one indicates the array and the prototype and the header. Okay, so moving forward, I'm going to take a look. I'm going to show you some of the examples right away so that it will make more sense, especially for this program that you see on your screen. And I'm going to go back and forth with some that needs more explanation. So when a single element of an array is passed to a function, it is handled like any other variable, as I've said. So for this program, this shows you a loop that passes an element of what is the array called? The collection array, right? So if you notice there on line 11, so this program demonstrates an array element that can be passed to a function like any other variable. And on your line, hold on for a second. All right. All right, line 11, that's the name, that's where our array was actually defined. The name of that is collection array to what? To the show value function each time that the loop is actually executed. So line 11 defines the name of the array, and you can see some initializers in there. And I also have a show value, which is part of the loop, right? um, and it's going to function. It's going to call that function each time that the loop is executed. Okay, so keep in mind, because the elements of the collection array are integers, a single integer value is being passed where? To the show value function each time that it is called, each time that it's going to be executed. So also notice how this is specified in the show value function prototype and your function header, right? The show value function, it knows that all the show value knows is that it is receiving an integer. Okay, it doesn't matter that it happens to be coming from an array. So keep that in mind. So again, you have your collection array, you have your size in there, which we have used a constant. We have our initializers. We also have a loop, and you're going to call the show value function each time the loop is executed, right? What else? And you can see that there is, so what's the possible output for this? So on the first iteration, it's going to what? Display 5. It's going to increase your index, right? And it's going to go through inside of that function call again, which is show value. It's going to go down on the body, so it shows you the header, which defines, of course, the data type of that. And it's going to display the second, which is element 1. So keep in mind it started with 0. So the second output will be what? 10. It will increase again of your index. Go back. It will increase the index. After doing so, it's going to ask you again and test if the index is less than array size. It's going to go and call the show value function again. It goes inside of your array, and the index varies because of the increase of the number, right? So for the third iteration, the output will be what? Will be 15, right? Why? Because of the provided initializers, right? So I hope that you find it useful. The show value function simply displays the contents of the num, right? And it doesn't need to work directly with the array elements themselves, right? The array elements are passed to it by the value. So if the function needed to access the original array elements, they would be passed by reference. So if this function were written to accept the entire array as an argument, the parameter will be it will be set up quite differently. So in the following definition, if you would see, I'm going to go through the next example in here, right? You will have the other one. So the first one, this one is going to just demonstrate how to be able to pass an array element to a function. And then for this one is passing an entire array to your function. Okay, so if the function were written, again, to accept the enter array as an argument, your parameter or the parameter would be set up a little bit differently. So in the following function definition, the parameter nums is actually followed by an empty set of brackets, right? So this one is an indication that the argument will be an enter array and not a single value. Do you follow? So notice on your line 5, as part of your prototype, notice that there is a flat, what is that, brace? Yeah, a flat brace. That signifies, this one indicates that the argument will be an enter array, not just a single value. Okay? So that will give you your int nums and then the size itself, and later on when you call it, you would see that there is the body at the bottom of your screen, right, which starts from line 22. So every single time that you call it on line 13, it goes at the bottom, right? It may be different when you look at some examples from Zybook, and the body can be like on the top of the program, but knowing that you exactly know where and when the function calls, that's very important, right? Notice that along with the array containing the values, the size of the array is also passed to show values function. So this is so it will know how many values there are to process, right? Notice as well that there's no size declarator inside of your brackets or your braces of nums. So that's simply because it's not actually an array, it's a special variable that accepts the address of an array. Okay, so when that entire array is passed to a function, it's not passed by just a value. So every time, so just imagine that your CPU time and the memory would be necessary if a copy of, let's say, a 20,000 elements array or 10,000 element array were created each time it was passed to a function, right? Instead, only the starting memory address of the array is actually passed. So this is similar to passing a value to, I'm sorry, this is similar to passing a variable to a function by reference, except that in this case there's no, what is that, ampersand or end symbol being used. So in this 8-15 example in here, it shows, it illustrates you and it shows you how the function show value receives the address of an inter array so it can be accessed and display all the contents of the elements itself, right? So it will of course display the output based from your initializers, right? So analyze it very quickly and look at it closely at the show values prototype on your line 5, which is at the top, and also on the function header, which is on line, what is that line 22. So in both cases, so a pair of braces follows the first parameter name. So this one, it allows you, or it lets the program know that the parameter accepts the address of an array. If the function prototype had not used some parameter names, then it will look, differently. Like your line 5 that says show values and then int, can be like a flat brace and then int again, right? So notice that on this one, if I may just show you and discuss you that on a more visual way, that the nums parameter variable in the show value function, right? This can accept the address of any integer array and it can be used to reference that array, right? So as we actually move forward for 8-16, this one, it demonstrates passing different arrays to a function, and know that on this section, okay? So if you notice on this section, on this program following, which is you can see on your screen, this uses this function to display the contents of two different arrays, okay? So also notice that they do not have to be the same size, right? Notice also the use of the type def statement in this program, and I'm going to expand the type def as we move forward, and it makes the name array type an alias for an array of integers. This name is being used in the show value prototype and as part of your function header instead of using int and flat brace. So this is an indication that your parameter, or should I say the first parameter, receives the starting address of the int array, right? Um, on the set 1 and set 2, they are declared in what line? In line 14 and 15, there's no size declarator being used in here. So we could actually, we could have used one, but recall that the size declarator is actually not required when an initialization list is used, right? So play around with it. I highly suggest that when you look at some examples that I'm showing on the video, I would really appreciate if you try to um, what's that run it so that you get to have a practice when it comes to your programs, right? On as part of this program, probably you've noticed this on certain examples when you research online or on the internet or whatnot, and you would see type defs at the top, right? I just wanted to quite elaborate on your type def, right? The type def statement, it allows an alias to the program to be associated with a simple or a structured data type. So what does it do? A type def, it stands for a type definition statement. It allows you, the programmer, to create an alias or a synonym or anything similar for an existing data type, right? It can be a simple data type like an integer or a more complicated data type such as an array. And it's going to emphasize anything that you have declared as part of that type def. It emphasizes the variable of that type as, let's say, integers, and it will hold those values, right? So what are the advantages of type def? It can make your code more clear. Type defs or type definition can make your code easier to modify as well, right? So it provides a different level of abstraction away from the actual types being used. So it allows you as a programmer to focus more on um, on the concept of just what a variable should mean, right? If that makes sense. So there's so many examples that I can upload to be able to kind of play around with how it works. But I hope you find some of the examples that I'm showing you right now useful. And please do make sure to run those examples so that it will be, I would say it will make more sense because, once you really just run the program, you would be able to debug and you would be able to kind of, encounter errors. So if you run this program, it's going to show you, well, for the first one, it's going to show you the value stored in an array on set 1, which obviously that contains 5, 10, 15, and so on. You have your initializers, and it will also show you, because you have two sets of C out on this program. The second one, which is part of your output as well, it will show you the value stored in an array with your second array, which is called set2. So you're going to have two lines of outputs in here that shows you the value stored in an array set1 and also with set2. Okay, so moving forward with certain examples for, hold on for a second. If I can just show you a couple of things in here for excuse me, for two-dimensional array. I just want to have this one as part of this video so that your experience is complete. I know you guys are very self-sufficient. You're helping one another, and I really do appreciate that, right? I just want to go through with, let's say, one or two examples for two-dimensional array, because the last time that we had, I think it was a parallel array, and for your classwork, it requires a parallel array as well. So moving forward, for a two-dimensional array, we know that a two-dimensional array is very similar. It's like similar to what a matrix is, right? It's like several identical arrays put together. So it's useful for storing and keeping multiple sets of data, right? Sometimes it's really necessary. It's very important to work with those multiple sets of data. Let's say a voting system, or let's say an inventory, or a grade averaging program a grade averaging program that requires you to, let's say, um, save or process different test scores and things like that. And if you notice on your screen, you can see like this has a set of rows in here and there's a set of columns, right? And we all know that there will be two subscripts to access each of the element, right? It's like similar to your Excel, that there is an intersection of a row and a column, right? So moving forward in here, I'm just gonna make sure that you can see my screen in here. It shows you the size declarator. So the first number represents for the row, and then the other one will represent for the column, right? For a subscript of 2, as you can see on my screen, it indicates the row of that array, and then 1 will be an indication for the column, and you're assigning 86 for that, right? So some examples in here, I know you have browsed your zybook already, but I still want to go through with certain examples. As you can see, let's take a look at some of the examples in here. You can actually omit the inner brace in there. And this is how it looks like on how it's being initialized, right? So I know that this program that I'm showing right now is quite small. So just probably stretch out and make sure that your screen is huge enough. And this one will use a two-dimensional array stored from a file, right? So please make sure to run this one and notice that there is quite a difference when it comes as compared to a one-dimensional array, and as well as a two parallel array. So it will show you a loop inside of a loop. Why? Obviously because you will have a row and a column. So you're going to have an inner loop in there that represents for your columns, and the outside, which is actually the division, and then the quarter for the inside, right? This is a possible output for that. I just want to make sure that you have that example as well to run. You can kind of stop when you're watching this video or whatnot, so that you will be able to run it, right? So moving forward with some of the passing as well of two-dimensional array to an example. This is also similar to what we have discussed before. However, this one is by the use of a two-dimensional array. So make sure that you kind of go through with the examples that I'm showing. This is going to be the last part in connection with the arrays discussion, because I did another video which I think I uploaded first regarding vectors. And I want you to know that those participation activities, I took time on really going through some questions. And actually, when I was doing some of the questions, I made mistakes sometimes and I forgot my semicolon and all that. It's also a good review for me when I look at the participation questions, is to somehow test as well, like, the concepts. If, it's like an impromptu answering of those questions. And I hope you find it useful on your end. I know that when you run or when you engage to participation questions, you can always see the answer, right? But it's not just about clicking what is the correct or clicking a true, and then you know that if you got it wrong, obviously the answer is false. But it's a deeper understanding. Like, okay, this is what I think is right, and then when you got it correctly, it will validate. It will show you an explanation at the end on why you got it correctly. Or if you got it wrong, it will show you, a validation as well that excuse me, that this is wrong and this would be a better way on how to do it. So please do. Those are the only way to be able to at least interact. I'm so thankful that we're using that interactive book. And what I like about it is the simulation. When you click start, it will even move some of the values and where it's going. So please do take time on really participating for those questions. I do have a separate video as well to help you answer, I would say 90% of the challenge activities, right? I only left like one of each. You have like two sets of challenge activities, I believe so. And then I only left like one question, which is just identifying the output, which, that's the easiest. So I left that for you to do. But, out of those 4 or 5 challenge activities, questions, like sub questions, I was able to kind of walk you through what's the possible solution for that. So I hope you find it helpful on your end. So as always, please do know that I'm always tracking. I always log in as much as I could, and please do take time on looking at those videos so that you can, you can be updated and you know what to do for what is assigned for that week. um, Log in all the time. Our main means of communication will be, of course, your email. If you needed to reach me immediately, rest assured that I'm reading all your emails and I try to answer them within 24 to 48 hours. Thank you for those who reach out through text. My phone number is 561 603 5510 5510. And I will see you live on our next session. This video will be up and running, any moment now. And I hope you are healthy once you get back and get the chance to go to your Blackboard, because I know some of you are working. Please note, check your graded items folder. If you haven't submitted your homework for the week, please submit even if it's late, because otherwise you're not going to get credit for that, right? Please stay safe and healthy. Panther proud, Panther strong. Bye.